from rags to riches, how one girl's embarrassing dress turned into a billionaire's epic dance offer. The gym was packed, buzzing with energy, but at the center of it all stood Sarah. Clad in her puffy, pink dress with sequins that twinkled like stars, she felt the heat of 1,000 eyes boring into her. This wasn't just any high school dance. It was the event of the year, and she was the underdog in a sea of glamorous gowns. Each snicker reverberated through her tight chest, but she pushed through the laughter, her heart racing. Little did she know, tonight was the beginning of something monumental. Around her, the walls were alive with whispers. "Did you see her?" one student said, barely able to catch their breath. Eyes rolled and head shook, but there was more than mere judgment in the air. It was electrifying curiosity. The lights flickered, creating shadows that danced along the floor, and for a moment, every voice muted. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart, a steady drum roll to the greatest show of her life. The way they all stared felt like they were waiting for a train wreck, and she was the train. Just as she thought she'd fade into the background, the room fell silent at the unexpected arrival of none other than billionaire dance mogul, Lucas Wright. He floated through the crowd like a specter, his tailored suit sharp as glass, eyes scanning the room with hawk-like intensity. Everyone held their breath. Why was he here? What could he possibly want? It was almost too surreal. The whispers turned into wide-eyed gasps. Sarah's heart thudded harder, locking her in place. Then, she saw a flicker of recognition in Lucas's eyes as they landed on her. Oh God, did he just smile? The sequins on her dress sparkled fiercely like the fire igniting in her chest. It turned a trickle of fear into a river of boldness. She took a shaky breath, her trembling hands fidgeting with her hair. It felt as if the world was spinning faster, pulling her closer to him. Before she could retreat into the crowd, he approached her. He leaned in closer than anyone else ever had, and suddenly, all the noise faded. "Would you dance with me?" he asked. The room erupted. Murmurs swirled around her, but Lucas's gaze anchored her. It was so intense, so intimate. What? Was this real? Could he really be asking her, the girl everyone had laughed at seconds ago? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Sarah held his gaze, the energy around them crackled like static electricity. Could this really be happening? The laughter, the scorn, everything faded, leaving just this moment suspended in time. What was behind his smile? Could it be a chance to change her life forever? She took a deep breath, realizing this wasn't just about the dance, it was about breaking free from every label and scoff she'd ever faced. With a nod, she stepped forward. Hands trembling, heart colliding against her ribs, she joined him. The crowd parted and suddenly, the spotlight zeroed in on them. What lay beyond this dance? What choices awaited her? Whatever came next, she was ready to discover the secrets hidden behind the glimmering lights. As Sarah stepped into the embrace of Lucas Wright, the world around them faded into a blur. The music pulsed in time with her heartbeat, its rhythm somehow strengthening her resolve. This was her moment, the one she'd only dared to dream about. Their hands met, warm and electric, sending ripples of energy coursing through her. Lucas pulled her closer, and she could feel the warmth radiating from him, a stark contrast to the chill of her recent humiliation. The eyes of the crowd were still fixated on them, but instead of feeling exposed, she was exhilarated. It was as if they had created their own universe, separate from the judgment and laughter. But the atmosphere shifted. Sarah noticed something lurking beneath Lucas's confident exterior, a tension that remained unspoken. He led her through the dance floor with such fluidity, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in those bright eyes. Her mind raced, searching for answers. Was he simply charming, or did he see something deeper in her? As the dance unfolded, she let the music guide her. With each spin, she felt lighter, her insecurities evaporating like morning mist. Lucas's movements were graceful, and he sparked confidence within her that she never knew existed. Just as she found her rhythm, he whispered, "You shine too brightly to be hidden." A wave of warmth coursed through her. Was he serious? The doubts she carried seemed irrelevant. But just as they glided across the floor, she spotted Samantha, the head cheerleader, sneering at them from the edge of the crowd. It was a flash of contempt that cut through her joy like a knife. Sarah's heart sank for a heartbeat. But then she recalled Lucas's words, and a spark of rebellion ignited in her chest. With newfound determination, Sarah regained her posture, lifting her chin. She danced like she was stealing the spotlight, and in that instant, everything began to shift. Laughter gave way to cheers, and whispers transformed into awe. Lucas noticed, his expression shifting to one of admiration and pride. Then, just as the energy peaked, Sarah felt a tug on her dress, a slight jerk that pulled her back to reality. She turned slightly, but Lucas sensed the shift. "Don't let them dictate your happiness," he urged, his voice low and sincere. Before she could respond, the crowd parted once again. An ominous figure strode through, eyes sharp and predatory. It was Marcus, the school's notorious bully. He stepped forward with an arrogant swagger that radiated danger. The room seemed to hush as he approached, a storm cloud crashing into their moment of bliss. "Isn't it funny, Sarah?" Marcus smirked, drawing everyone's attention back to him. "One dance with Mr. Billionaire doesn't erase the fact that you'll always be the joke." Lucas's grip tightened around her waist, the protective instinct sparking to life. But Sarah felt something deeper stir within her. A sudden rush of anger mixed with defiance. Could she really let Marcus taint this moment? Fueled by a strength she never knew she possessed, Sarah faced Marcus head-on. "I'm not your punchline anymore." The words poured out, raw and powerful, echoing in the once silent gym. But before anyone could react, Marcus stepped closer, venom in his voice. "You think you're something special? You'll always be just that awkward girl in a pink dress." The crowd gasped, time seemed to freeze. Lucas looked at Sarah, searching for answers. Would she fight back, or let his words tear her apart? Determination flashed in her eyes as she prepared for the confrontation, knowing that this was more than just about them. It was the moment to take a stand, to redefine who she really was. But would her strength hold? Standing at the brink, would she make the choices that could change everything? Sarah could feel the eyes of the world on her once again. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the battle had only just begun. The tension in the gym hung like a thick fog, wrapping around Sarah as she squared her shoulders against Marcus's taunts. His smirk deepened, feeding off the crowd's anticipation. It was a dangerous game. Their eyes were glued to her, hungry for drama. Could she really stand her ground, or was this all just a fleeting moment of courage before the inevitable collapse? "Look around you, Sarah." Marcus gestured to the crowd, his voice dripping with mockery. "They're just waiting for the next punchline. You think this dance changes anything?" But with Lucas by her side, that bittersweet taste of anger transformed into something sharper, powerful, and exhilarating. Sarah hadn't spent all these years on the sidelines to let a bully steal her moment. "Maybe it's time you learned that the real joke is you thinking you can keep me there," she shot back, her voice steady, each word a blade cutting through his bravado. The crowd drew in a collective breath, a shift palpable in the air. Sarah could feel the surprise bouncing off Lucas, his expression morphing from concern to admiration. With every heartbeat, her confidence surged. The glaring lights reflecting off her dress felt less like scrutiny and more like an armor she was wearing proudly. Marcus's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, he seemed unfazed. "You really think this is going to end well for you? Remember, pretty dresses fade, but the scars I leave will last a lifetime." She met his gaze, unflinching. "And how many more times are you going to be that scared little boy hiding behind your tough guy act?" The words fell from her lips, hot and quick, igniting the crowd's whispers into a fervor. Behind her, she felt Lucas shift, his presence a shield against the toxic energy that Marcus radiated like a storm. Every voice in the gym was a mix. Some were cheering her on, while others hesitated, unsure of the showdown unfolding. "Smart comeback, Sarah. But you're still out of your league," Marcus retorted, his tone venomous, eyes flashing with a threat. He stepped closer, and she could feel the heat of his anger pressing against her. She stood her ground, heart racing, breath shallow. "Let me show you something," Lucas intervened, stepping forward, a fierce determination in his eyes. "You think you can tear someone down with your pathetic words? That's your problem, Marcus. You don't understand true strength." The hushed crowd whipped back to him, intrigued by the billionaire standing up against the school bully. For a moment, the gym reverberated with anticipation. Sarah's heart slammed in her chest, caught between the tension of the moment and the intrigue of Lucas's boldness. Would he fight her battle for her, or was this about her standing alone? She needed to decide. "Lucas," she murmured, but his glare remained fixed on Marcus. "Your reign of terror is over, Marcus. It's time to define who we are on our own terms." The strength in his voice cracked through Sarah's doubts. The crowd, once divided, leaned closer, edging into solidarity with her defiance. Gasps echoed, conversations buzzed, creating a fever pitch around them. She could feel the shift. They were rallying behind her. As Marcus took a step back, rattled, Sarah considered her next words carefully. She needed to seize this moment. "And if you can't show respect for others, then you'll be the one left behind. I won't play your game anymore." The crowd erupted in cheers, a sudden unity sweeping through the gym. Eyes wide, Sarah felt adrenaline pulse through her veins. But just as victory seemed ripe for the taking, Lucas's phone buzzed violently against his pocket. Distracted, he glanced down. The color drained from his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, alarmed. He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze darted past her, terrified. Before Sarah could process his reaction, yet another ominous presence swept over them, one that set every pair of eyes turning towards the entrance of the gym. "Lucas, we have to go," he whispered urgently, his voice laced with something darker than fear. But what could eclipse the fiery moment they just sparked, as Sarah stood there, uncertainty knotting in her stomach? A chilling realization crept in. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. What awaited them outside might just unravel everything. Would they be ready to face what was coming next? The anticipation was suffocating, laced with the promise of chaos to unfold. The atmosphere shifted in an instant, charged with an energy that felt dangerously unpredictable. Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing and heart pounding as the crowd swelled around them. Faces once eager for conflict were now turned toward the entrance, where a figure emerged, cloaked in shadows, thickening the tension like a storm rolling in. "Who was that?" she thought, feeling a shiver slide down her spine. Lucas's grip tightened on her arm, his demeanor abruptly serious, focused. She followed his gaze, and her breath caught in her throat. The newcomer was tall, dressed in dark apparel that seemed to absorb the light, a sharp contrast to the glittering gym full of laughter and carefree joy. As he moved closer, the whispers grew and anxiety bled through the crowd. "Is he with Marcus?" someone murmured, eyes darting, hearts quickening. Should we call the cops? Another whispered, their voice barely audible over the rising tide of apprehension. But Lucas was already squeezing through the throng, tugging Sarah along, urgency fueling his every step. We need to get out of here. His voice was hoarse, filled with an urgency that made her stomach twist. Wait, she protested, struggling to stay in place. I can't just leave after everything, but the words felt weak, fading under the weight of dread that hung heavy in the air. Trust me. I promise I'll explain everything later, he said, his eyes searching hers, pleading. There was a raw intensity there, something that sent another shake of electricity coursing through her veins, mingling with fear. Before they could make another move, the figure moved closer, cutting through the crowd with a predator's focus. Marcus was all too aware of his presence, his confidence waning. The laughter from moments ago had died away, replaced by an ominous silence. They're not your friends, Sarah. Marcus's voice carried, desperate and shrill. Do you really think they care? They're just waiting to see you fall again. The crowd, once magnified by her bravery, now seemed uncertain, and Sarah felt a familiar sense of doubt creeping in. Flames of anger flickered back to life, but she struggled to reignite the fire within her. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a sharp jawline and a gaze that pierced through the chaos, a face she recognized, a name that echoed with significance. Caleb? She breathed, the realization bit deep. The shocking twist of fate set her heart to racing again. She had known his family, had even admired them from afar. But that was long ago, before the rift carved by wealth and popularity separated her from everyone she once knew. Lucas swiveled around, the weight of knowledge bearing down on him. You know him? Caleb broke through the crowd like a specter. Sarah. His voice rolled deep, filled with a magnetic pull. We need to talk. What do you want? She blurted, hesitation battling furious denial. What could he possibly have to say now? Not here. His eyes flickered to Lucas, then back to her, urgent yet pleading. You're in danger, and you don't even realize it. Dread pulled in her stomach again, thick and suffocating. The crowd remained torn, uncertainty rippling like a stone thrown in calm water, while Marcus shifted with impatience, his confidence unclear for the first time. Time felt suspended, holding its breath in anticipation of the truth soon to unravel. Danger? She echoed, disbelief tightening around her heart. Do you trust me? Caleb's gaze bore into hers, unwavering. She hesitated, caught between everything she felt and everything she didn't understand. The moment hung, the air around them heavy with tension so visceral and alive. But the swirling chaos had a life of its own, and uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her. The world felt like it was tilting. Everything she thought she knew was unraveling. Sarah, Lucas urged, the edge of panic lining his voice. Come on, Caleb said, urgency spiking as shadows revolved behind them, looming and threatening. We don't have time. With her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah faced the brink of uncertainty, the choice hanging in the balance. To trust a past that had shaped her, or step boldly into an unknown future weighed down by danger? The choice was hers to make, but time was swiftly slipping away. What lay beyond the doors? Would she stop the past from haunting her, or allow it to dictate her fate? In that moment, she knew this was just the beginning of something far more intense, a path that could change everything forever. Would she have the strength to follow through? The tension in the gym was electric, the air thick with uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced, every beat echoing Lucas's growing fear. Caleb's eyes shone with urgency, and she realized just how perilous their situation truly was. They turned to follow the path carved through the crowd, her pulse quickening with every step closer to freedom and danger. With each stride, she could feel the weight of Marcus's angry glance burning into her back. Are you seriously going to trust him? Marcus shouted, his voice shrill, cutting through the hushed whispers. "He has trouble, Sarah. You know nothing about him now." She didn't look back. Panic clawed at her throat, fighting to break free, but she could only focus on Caleb and Lucas as they reached the double doors at the far side, stepping out into the night. The bite of the cool air was a stark contrast to the stifling heat of the gym, but it did little to calm her racing heart. "Where do we go?" she gasped, looking between the two boys, both filled with intensity, but each carrying a different kind of weight. Lucas looked haunted, while Caleb seemed charged, every part of him ready for a fight. "This way," Caleb urged, leading them into the dimly lit parking lot, the shadows clawing at their heels. As they dashed to a sleek black car parked at the far end, a sudden shout sent ice-cold fear running through her. "Sarah! Get back here!" It was Marcus, his tone frantic and dangerous, slicing through the night like a knife. Caleb swung around and positioned himself protectively in front of her. "He is not going to hurt you," he said, but his voice faltered slightly. She could see the uncertainty flaring in his eyes, hinting at secrets she wasn't privy to. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, frustration mixing with a tumult of emotions. "Is this because of the past? Or are you just trying to play hero?" "He is not what you think," Caleb said sharply, cutting through her doubt. "You have no idea how much you're in danger. You and Lucas both." "Okay, but what danger?" she cried, glancing at Lucas, who was shifting nervously, his posture tight with uncertainty. "Marcus, he is not just some jealous ex. He is involved in things you can't imagine, Sarah." Caleb's gaze darted back to where the gym loomed in the distance. "This isn't just a social spat. He has people. Dangerous people." Fear gripped her heart with icy fingers. She thought about the smirks and laughter she had brushed off earlier, thinking them harmless. "What do you mean?" "Just get in. We can talk." With a sudden, ominous sound, a heavy thud echoed behind them. They spun around at the noise, and her breath caught as Marcus stormed out of the gym, his demeanor wild. Two burly figures in hoodies flanked him, their faces obscured, eyes filled with a dangerous intensity. "Sarah!" Marcus yelled again, desperation tinged with something darker. "You don't want to get mixed up in this." Lucas stepped forward, instinctively protective. "You need to back off, Marcus. I'm not letting you take her." Marcus screamed, voice breaking. "This is bigger than you both. You don't know what you're getting into." With adrenaline thrumming in her veins, Sarah felt as if she stood on the edge of a precipice. She couldn't let fear dictate her moves, not now. She looked at Caleb, who met her gaze with a fierce determination. "Go!" he shouted, pushing her toward the car, his resolve solid. "Now!" Suddenly, everything seemed to happen in a heartbeat. The hooded figures advanced, their intentions clear. The grip of dread tightened around her, a visceral punch to her gut, but with that fear came a flicker of defiance. "Get in!" Lucas urged, his voice sharp, but as she desperately hopped into the car, she looked back just in time to see Marcus lunging forward, a glint of something metallic in his hand, a knife. The world shattered in a rush, chaos pooling around her as she gasped. "Drive!" But even as Caleb revved the engine, she realized they were already too late. What had she stepped into? And could she escape the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole? With the rearview mirror reflecting their pursuers, Sarah understood she was on the brink of discovering secrets that could change everything. Would the revelations pull her deeper into a darkness she couldn't outrun? Caleb slammed his foot on the gas, lurching the car forward as the engine roared to life. Sarah's heart raced even faster, a frantic drumbeat accompanying their escape. She glanced nervously in the rearview mirror, the din of shouting and chaos fading behind them, but the dread still lingering. Did he have a knife? Her voice trembled, fear creeping in, and she could see Lucas nodding, the reality of the situation coming down heavy on their shoulders. Yeah, he did. Caleb gritted his teeth, eyes fixed on the road ahead. But we're safe now. We just need to get out of here. The streets zipped by in a blur of lights and shadows as the car sped away, and Sarah felt a chill weaving through her thoughts. She couldn't shake the image of Marcus lunging forward, his eyes alight with desperation and fury. She hardly knew him anymore, but there was a deep-seated anxiety gnawing at her. What did he mean by "this is bigger than you both"? She asked, hoping for clarity. Caleb took a steadying breath. It's about the people he has mixed up with. Marcus isn't just some guy who lost his chance with you. He has tangled in something dangerous, something that could swallow you whole if you're not careful. What are you saying? Sarah pressed, the weight of his words settling heavy in her gut. There's a group, Sarah. People who deal in things that, well, they don't play by the rules. Caleb's knuckles widened around the steering wheel. You're not just a girl caught in a breakup. You've been pulled into a world of criminal activity. Sarah recoiled, her mind racing. Criminal activity? Lucas shifted in his seat, the tension radiating from him. We shouldn't be talking about this just yet. We need to get somewhere safe. Caleb shot him a quick look, then focused on the road again, urgency driving his next words. No, we have to tell her. She deserves to know what kind of storm is brewing. This might endanger all of us, but especially you, Sarah. Rubbing her palms against her clammy jeans, Sarah swallowed hard. I thought this was just high school drama. How can it be anything more? Because sometimes high school drama is a cover for what's really going on beneath the surface. The people Marcus hangs out with, they don't just argue in the hallways. They protect their interests, no matter the cost. Caleb's voice dropped low, almost conspiratorial. What do I do? The question slipped from her lips, raw and desperate. Right now, you lay low until we figure out our next move. Just let us handle this, Lucas said firmly. But what if they come after me? Terrified thoughts spiraled in her mind like wildfire. Would Marcus send those two hooded figures after her? What did they want? Then we'll protect you, Caleb declared with a ferocity that made Sarah's heart flutter, a strange mix of fear and adrenaline coursing through her. We'll figure this out together. But you need to trust us. Before she could reply, something caught her eye from the rearview mirror, the headlights of a car coming up fast behind them. Caleb! They're right on us! As she pointed, Caleb's expression shifted from anger to intense concentration, the thrill of danger igniting in his eyes. He maneuvered the car sharply to the right, veering down a dark alleyway that split from the main road. With every bump and turn, Sarah's stomach dropped. The thrill of escape mingled with the tight grip of fear. Where was this alley leading, and were they truly safe? She felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a freight train. Were they just delaying the inevitable? Suddenly, another vehicle, a gleaming SUV, appeared at the alley's entrance. The engine growled as it barreled down toward them, no hesitation in its approach. Panic seized her. Are we trapped? Caleb's jaw clenched, and he slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. Get out! Now! But before they could even react, the world exploded around them. A flash illuminated the darkness, and the unmistakable sound of shattering glass erupted in a terrifying crescendo. In that instant, Sarah realized their escape had just become an all-out fight for survival. What awaited them at the end of this alley was uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. The night was only just beginning, and the darkness was closing in fast. What would happen next? Would they make it out alive, or was this the end of the line? The air crackled with tension as Sarah's heart raced in her chest, drowning out the sound of shattered glass that rained down around them. The familiar smell of burning rubber filled the car, mixing with the sharp tang of fear that hung like a fog. Lucas's face turned pale as he looked around, eyes wide with shock. Caleb! We need to move, Lucas shouted, scrambling for the door handle. The banging continued, hard and rhythmic, like a drumbeat of impending doom. Caleb didn't hesitate. He flung open his door, bolting into the chaos outside. "Come on, Sarah!" he yelled, urgency in his tone slicing through the panic. For a moment time froze. Sarah felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. Could this really be happening? She blinked, reminding herself that she had to act. Gripping the handle, she flung the door open and stumbled out into the alley, the cool night air slapping her face. She glanced back just in time to see the SUV barreling toward them, its headlights illuminating the darkness like an approaching storm. Caleb was already sprinting down the alley, yelling for her to follow. This way. Sarah's legs felt like lead, but adrenaline pushed her forward. She ran, her breath catching in her throat as she glanced back. Lucas hurried to catch up, his face a mask of determination. They darted down the dimly lit alley, shadows flickering past them. But the sound of the SUV's engine grew closer, its presence looming like a predator hunting its prey. "We can't let them catch us," Lucas gasped, grabbing her hand to pull her along. Each turn seemed to lead them deeper into a labyrinth, the walls closing in around them, the echoes of their footsteps competing with the roar of the engine. Just ahead, Caleb veered sharply to the left, and Sarah followed without thinking. They burst into a small courtyard, surrounded by jagged brick buildings looming overhead like giants, and skidded to a halt. "Where do we go now?" Sarah's voice trembled, but she held onto Lucas's gaze, searching for answers. Caleb's eyes darted around them, calculating. "We need to find a place to hide. They'll be here any second." Sarah's heart pounded as they ducked behind an old dumpster, the metallic scent of garbage invading her senses. They huddled close, the adrenaline still pumping through her, mingling with fear. Would Marcus really send his people after her? What kind of world had she been drawn into? From their hiding spot, they could hear the SUV skidding to a stop right outside the alley's entrance. Doors slammed, and heavy footsteps echoed as men emerged, voices low but urgent. "Check the back alleys." They couldn't have gone far. A chill ran down her spine. The thought of dark figures hunting them like animals sent tremors through her body. "What if they find us?" Sarah whispered, panic creeping in, squeezing her stomach tight. Caleb turned to her, his face somber but resolute. "We won't let that happen. Just stay quiet." They listened intently, every second ticking by like an eternity. The footsteps echoed closer, and the air felt thick not just with fear, but with the weight of their choices. The gravity of Marcus's words replayed in Sarah's mind. This was bigger than just her and Caleb. Suddenly, a voice caught through the tense silence. "They have to be around here somewhere. Check every corner." Her insides twisted. What if they did find them? The looming threat hung over her like a dark cloud, suffocating and oppressive. "Stay still." Lucas squeezed her hand tighter, a lifeline in the growing chaos. But just as the tension peaked, a sudden sound shattered the quiet. A loud crash came from the opposite side of the courtyard. Caleb's eyes widened. Distraction? Go! They didn't need to be told twice. Without another glance back, they bolted further into the shadows, hearts pounding in sync with their desperate flight. As they took every twist and turn, one question blazed through Sarah's mind. Would they find a way out, or would the night consume them whole? Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows ahead, blocking their path, someone they never expected to see. Were they friend or foe? The night was still far from over, and the darkness held its secrets tight. The figure stepped forward, pulling back the hood of a dark sweatshirt, revealing a face that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. It was Jamie, her old friend from high school, someone she thought she'd never see again. But the look in Jamie's eyes was anything but friendly. "Sarah?" Jamie's voice dripped with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "What are you doing here?" Before Sarah could answer, Caleb stepped in front of her, protective instincts flaring up. "Get out of the way, Jamie. We don't have time for this. Do you know who they are?" Jamie shot back, glancing over her shoulder, nervousness creeping into her voice. "Why are you running? You don't understand, do you?" Sarah interjected. "Do you know what Marcus is capable of? We're not safe here." The tension crackled like the air before a summer storm. Jamie's gaze flicked between the alley where the men had just been and the three of them, understanding dawning slowly on her face. "I can help you. But we need to run now." "Help? How do we know we can trust you?" Lucas whispered, still gripping Sarah's hand like a lifeline. "Because I've seen what they can do." Jamie's voice rose, passion igniting her words. "I've been on the inside. We don't have time. Follow me." Before they could respond, she dashed into the darkness, her figure nearly swallowed whole by the shadows. With barely a second to think, Caleb broke into a sprint after her, pulling Sarah and Lucas along. Trusting Jamie felt like a gamble, but there was no time to weigh their options. They had to keep moving. As they tore through the back streets, the sounds of the city morphed around them. Sirens wailed in the distance. Broken glass crunched beneath their feet, but somehow, the adrenaline made them feel invincible. They rounded a corner, skidding to a halt as Jamie turned to face them. "There's a warehouse at the end of this block. We can hide inside." "Isn't that too obvious?" Lucas countered, looking skeptical. "Obvious enough that they wouldn't expect it. Just trust me." Jamie pressed, urgency pushing her words out rapidly. "Okay, let us move," Caleb commanded, and they took off towards the warehouse, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. As they approached, everything felt surreal. The warehouse loomed large and ghostly, its cracked windows watching them like hollow eyes. They slipped inside through an old side door, just as a shout echoed from behind them. "Over here!" They went this way. Panic flickered in Sarah's chest. They rushed deep into the shadows of the warehouse, the scent of rust and old wood filling their lungs. Inside, it felt like stepping into a tomb, cold and echoing. "Find somewhere to hide," Caleb hissed, his eyes darting around. They scrambled around discarded crates and boxes, Sarah's heart hammering as they pressed themselves against the wall. The noise outside grew louder, footsteps clattering around the entrance. She could hear them shouting orders, voices tinged with authority and menace. "It's a matter of time before they find us," Lucas murmured, biting his nails, eyes wide with fear. "We're not going to let that happen," Caleb whispered fiercely. But Sarah could see the doubt in his eyes. A sudden clatter rang out from the front of the warehouse, and they froze, breaths held tight in their throats. "We'll sweep the inside. They can't hide forever." The ceiling felt like it was closing in, Sarah's heart racing with every thud outside. They had to think of something. There had to be a way out. Just then, Jamie leaned in closer. "Listen, I know where the back exit is, but I need a distraction." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Before Jamie could explain further, a loud crash erupted from the entrance as the door burst open and a figure stormed inside, silhouetted against the dim light of the outside world. "Get ready. We're going to need every bit of courage we have." Caleb nodded, meeting Sarah's gaze. They all knew this was at the moment of truth. But as they prepared for whatever came next, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was just beginning. Would they escape, or would the darkness finally consume them? Something was brewing outside, and she feared it was more than just their pursuers. The night had secrets yet to reveal. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the shadowy figure stepped further into the warehouse. This was no ordinary intruder. The tension radiating from him felt palpable. He was tall, muscle-bound, and his face was hidden beneath a cap pulled low, but there was something familiar about him. "Stay quiet," Jamie whispered urgently, pressing herself against the wall beside Sarah. Caleb's fists clenched tight, his body coiled, ready to spring into action. The figure moved slowly, methodically, shining a flashlight across the debris-strewn floor. His voice cut through the thick air. "I know you're here. It's pointless to hide. You can't escape what is coming." A chill ran through Sarah. The last word he uttered echoed in the cavernous space, making her shiver. That was their reality now, the idea that they could outrun something dark and enormous looming over them. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Caleb edge closer, his gaze locked on the intruder, intent on protecting them at all costs. Lucas, however, was trembling. A bead of sweat slid down his forehead, glistening in the dim light. "What do they want with us?" he whispered, voice quaking. "They want to silence us, for good," Jamie replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you get wrapped up in?" Caleb's voice trembled now, an undercurrent of fury woven through it. Jamie opened her mouth, but before she could respond, the figure pivoted, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness and landing directly on them. "I found you!" he shouted, rushing towards their hiding place. Panic surged as Caleb reacted instinctively, pushing Sarah and Lucas deeper into the shadows. The crash of crates against the concrete echoed as the intruder barreled forward. "Get the hell out of my way! Now!" Caleb shouted, kicking a box at the figure to create a moment's distraction. The man staggered back, and in that split second, Jamie seized Sarah's wrist, yanking her towards the back of the warehouse. They ducked behind an enormous stack of pallets and scrambled to find the exit Jamie spoke of. Heart pounding, Sarah could barely think. All she knew was they had to escape and trust Jamie, even when her instincts screamed otherwise. "Where is it?" Sarah panted, scanning their surroundings, looking for any sign of a door, a crack in the wall through which they could slip away. "Over there." Jamie pointed towards a dimly lit section, hidden beneath a tarp. The flashlight beam swept closer. They dashed toward the exit as another crash resounded through the warehouse. "Get back here!" Frantic, Sarah's desperation fueled her legs as they darted toward the light. Caleb reached for the tarp, pulling it aside to reveal a rusted door barely clinging to its hinges. "Hurry!" he urged, wrenching it open. Halfway through the doorway, Sarah felt a sharp pain as the shadow lunged again, gripping her ankle like ice. She cried out, struggling to break free. "No!" Caleb reached down, yanking hard, and Sarah was pulled through just as the shadow's fingers slipped away. They tumbled to the ground, panting and gasping for air. But the night was far from over. Behind them, the door slammed shut with terrifying finality. Caleb pushed Sarah's hair from her face. "Are we safe?" For a brief moment, they all caught a breath, the adrenaline making them feel invincible. But the sounds of heavy footsteps pounding behind the door told them they weren't out of the woods yet. "What exactly are we running from?" Sarah finally managed to ask Jamie, her heart racing not just from the chase, but from the questions tearing through her mind. Terror flashed across Jamie's face, and for the first time, it seemed like she was on the verge of revealing everything. I can explain everything," she started, but before she could continue, a scream pierced the night, a shrill, haunting wail that wrapped around them like a noose. Sarah felt a rush of fear that she couldn't explain, like something terrible was waiting for them just around the bend. What was that? The air grew thick, suffocating them in dread as they braced themselves for the truth they were about to uncover. And with that cry still echoing in the darkness, it hit Sarah that they may not be the only ones in danger tonight. What were they really running from? What did Jamie know? And could they survive the darkness before it consumed them all? The sound of panic echoed through the air, the haunting scream reverberating off the cold warehouse walls. As Sarah struggled to catch her breath, every instinct told her to run, but she found herself glued to the spot, fear gripping her like a vice. Caleb's eyes darted to the entrance, his mind racing as he processed the threat behind them. Lucas stood tense, his breath quickening, the color drained from his face. "Sarah, we need to go," Caleb urged, his voice rising above the chaos. But uncertainty rooted Sarah to the ground. What else lurked in the shadows? They had already run into the darkness, only to find her old friend now shrouded in mystery among familiar faces. "What did you get pulled into, Jamie?" Sarah found her voice, lifting it despite the rush of fear. "What is happening?" Jamie stepped closer, her gaze scanning the dark alley, as if even the shadows could betray her. "It's not just about Marcus," she said, voice trembling yet resolute. "There's a whole network behind him, people who will do anything to keep their secrets safe. And you're caught in the crossfire." The truth hung heavy like a thick fog. Without knowing it, Sarah had unknowingly danced into the lion's den, and the feeling of being watched pressed heavily on her chest. "We can't stay here," Lucas said, clutching Sarah's arm, as if the force of his grip could protect her from the unknown. "What will happen if they find us here?" "Nothing good," Jamie confessed, a shadow flickering across her visage. "I thought being away from you all would keep you safe, but it's coming for you." The sound of footsteps echoed again, this time louder, accompanied by voices hissing orders. "We need to move, now," Caleb urged. Without thinking twice, they tore off into the dark streets, the night closing in around them. Sarah's heart thundered, fear coaxing every ounce of adrenaline in her body. "What about the others?" she called out, not taking her eyes off of Jamie. "Anyone who didn't run." As they dashed through the alleys, Jamie hesitated for a moment, anguish shadowing her face. "We can't go back," she whispered, pained. "There's too much at stake." "No," Caleb growled. "We can't leave them to face this alone. We have to try. We can't just abandon them." Sarah felt torn, the weight of her courage battling against the fear pooling deep in her gut. They stopped, huddled together in a narrow alleyway, their breaths ragged. In that moment of urgency, Sarah felt the gravity of their shared fate. "Okay, we make a plan." Sarah took a step forward, her voice breaking the silence. "If we're going to confront whatever this is, we do it together. We save everyone." Caleb nodded, a new determination in his eyes. "But we need to get more information," he said. "We start with Marcus, and then we figure out who's behind him." "The warehouse has to have a way to get in that they didn't notice," Jamie suggested, her expression resolute. "We can use that against them." "Then let us do this," Lucas said, a fierce fire igniting in his spirit. "This is our story now, and we're not just going to sit back and watch chaos unfold. We change the narrative." With a renewed sense of purpose driving them, the group aimed to draw out Marcus and face the storm head-on. They carefully maneuvered back toward the warehouse, nerves tingling in the depths of Sarah's stomach. The night cloaked their movements and, for a flickering moment, hope ignited the air around them. As they prepared to confront whatever awaited them, they heard muffled voices just outside the door they had escaped from earlier. Adrenaline surged within Sarah, who tightened her jaw, determined to stand firm. "This ends tonight." As they drew near the entrance, Sarah noticed an object gleam in the shadows. A discarded metal pipe lay just off to the side. "If it comes to a fight, we'll have to improvise," she whispered. Caleb picked up the pipe, feeling the weight of it in his hands. "Ready?" he asked, meeting the determined eyes of the group. There was a pause, a moment where they felt their hearts synchronize, understanding that this was no longer just about survival. They were fighting to reclaim their lives, every single one of them. "Always," Sarah replied, taking a deep breath, her heart pounding as they slipped into the darkness of the warehouse. The night was not yet over, but they were ready to shine light onto the truth that had been cloaked in shadow for too long. The strength of their bond would push them through, leading them into a brighter tomorrow. As they moved stealthily through the darkened doorway and into the unknown, they realized together that nothing could extinguish the fire they ignited within each other. Victory was only a dance away. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement drives our entire community, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us rise together.